Yo, you're back right here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Hey, I just got back from a trip, and so and I drove like 1,000 miles, and so I got to listen to some playbacks of some episodes, and I noticed that when I do my intro here and I tell you who I am and my name and all that kind of stuff, that is in the span of 30 seconds, the third time that you've heard my name. It literally, I say my name at the beginning of the song, and then in the song that is our intro from our great friend Udon Cheek at East Carolina University. It says my name again, and then I come in and say so I'm done. I'm not saying my name anymore. If you don't know who I am, you didn't listen to the intro song, which you should because a track coach created that. He's amazing. Udon is awesome. Check him out on Spotify. He's actually his new song, I'm Free, just dropped on Spotify as well. I listened to it this morning in the weight room and it was stinking cool. So we don't need to introduce me anymore. So we get to spend more time and get straight to our guest. Help me welcome the head coach of Byron Center High School in the beautiful state of Michigan, the wise, the wonderful, Mr. Colin Hunter. Colin, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Your message was you're either coming from practice or you just set them out on practice. You're right in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, so I had enough time to get our distance runners through their workout. I coached the distance group in addition to being the head coach. So we quick got through a little pre-race workout for them, and all the other groups are taking care of their stuff. So they're all running right now as we're talking.
And I like to, as much as possible, go in sequential order, but I thought it was interesting because the conversation we had right before we hit record really like exemplified what a high school coach like you want to be a high school track coach, be careful what you ask for.
hmm
You guys, because of scheduling and all this stuff, you just got through, I think you said in 12
We
days,
in
14 days,
in seven
four.
calendar days. We had 7 calendar days. We hosted an invite, and then we had two dual meets Tuesday and Thursday, and then we had another invite that we went to the next Saturday.
I didn't even know you
I know
hosted
that
one of those
there's
meets. Yeah.
there's well that we hosted both of the duels too, so I was extra tired. So I know there's coaches that would be just rolling over talking about racing that much, and that was not my favorite thing to do. But the schedule is weird this year, and we
Yeah.
do what we got to do. So
It's interesting, as I do track clinics around the country and do a lot of hosting and Q&As and things like that, which has been a big blast for me. One of the probably most common questions from a high school coach, whether it's a high school coach on the panel or a college coach, is, "Hey, we have to do Tuesday, Thursday dual meets and then invitationals. How do
mhm.
you do that?" Yeah, literally, it's one of the most common questions a coach will ask, and
and
that's
it's also controversial too.
100%. Hey, I grew up in Alabama and we did it. We were the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday invite team, and we did not do it correctly. We literally ran every race every time, like
Right.
yeah, yeah. It was terrible, terrible,
No,
terrible.
you could see it. You could see it in our most recent duel that we had this past Tuesday. Like our some of our studs who are usually way up were very much not up. They were
Yeah.
ready for a break. So we took the
Uh,
next day off, and yeah, so hopefully we're getting some spirits back up here.
I think, through the Gill 1918 project and through track clinics and coaching education, I think we're getting better at not doing what, my coach did with me and that you run every race, every meet.
hmm
But I remember somewhere, I thought it was, I don't want to misquote, somewhere that was the question at a track clinic. And the obvious answer is, well, maybe run them in off events, maybe don't run you don't have to run your stud two
Right.
miler every race, and all that kind of stuff. But the coach's rebuttal was that those Tuesday, Thursday dual tri meets counted for like their conference
Right.
championship. I was like, oh, well, that's a whole
Yep.
different can of
And
worms.
there's some
Jeez.
there's some leagues that don't count that. They just count their conference meet, but ours does. So yeah, we just have to look at how can we manage scoring enough versus keeping kids fresh and healthy. And I think we did the best job we could, and we're
Man,
on our way. So
I thought coaching track was just, you send them on for a few miles. I didn't know there's all this
yeah,
component to it, man.
a little
Holy
bit more
cow.
stuff.
It is, brother. It is. Well, Colin, let's learn more stuff, man. I'm super excited. What we do here, and it's our mission that we will continue to drive every Monday here in our original content with our interviews with coaches is to uplift and honor what you do as a coach. And so I love learning journeys. I love learning, how track became part of your life. When did coaching like flip and was like, oh, wait a minute, I could do that. Like that could be my career. So I love learning all that. So, Colin, my first question for you is going to be, where does track start for you, man? Middle school, high school? Maybe you didn't even do track? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in that bucket. So I'm pretty sure that you're not going to have a person with a similar story.
Okay.
Um, I
Challenge
was
accepted.
I was homeschooled. Track and field wasn't an option. Born and raised in West Michigan. I've been here my whole life.
Okay.
And there's some sports in West Michigan that are kind of strong in the homeschool community. They do basketball really well. I wasn't a basketball kid. I was a football kid.
Hmm.
And so when I was growing up, there was a handful of homeschool football teams. And so I played football as my first love. Um, Still love it and played from the only catch was I could only play through 11th grade. So I played football uh, 6th grade through 11th grade. Wasn't very good. Realized as an adult that distance running is probably where my skill set was. So I should have run
Ah,
track if that would have been a possibility, but it
yeah.
wasn't. But yeah, so football player, played offensive and defensive line. And just loved every bit of it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing in the world.
What, first of all, I'm curious why only, let's start with this. Why only through 11th grade? Were you not
So
allowed?
it's how the MHSAA works. It's kind of goofy. I think football is the only sport where it's a problem. Um, because of how playoff points work for the high schools. So we could play against JV teams, but we couldn't schedule against varsity teams. And
Okay.
then, 12th graders don't need to be playing JV, right?
Right,
So
right, right, right. Okay.
because of how that works, you couldn't schedule varsity
Mhm.
games. Later on, we'll hit this. Later on, there were more opportunities through a different league.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, when I was that age, it was up until 10th or 11th grade. So
And I've heard of homeschool kids that will play team sports on the local high school, whatever high school
yeah,
they would have gone to.
in
But
in
you're
different states, that's a thing. In Michigan, it is not.
but you're saying like this was a group of homeschool kids that made up a football team.
Correct.
So
Yep.
you guys like it feels like very Sandlot neighborhoods. Like you guys
It
was like, all right,
was
3 o'clock, we all just meet and we play.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was as organized as you could be with the homeschool people.
Wow.
Um, and that's the it's weird because the community is very like individual and doing things our way. That's probably the hardest part of it. Like I said, they actually do basketball really well. There's a
Mhm.
there's a bunch of homeschool basketball teams that are really established. Um,
Huh.
uh, and so with those leagues, like yeah, they do it pretty good, but again, it's not the same experience.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure. That's interesting. Cool.
yep,
And you mentioned you kind of said two things that didn't really line up for me. You said you kind of maybe learned later in life, like, oh, maybe I should have been a distance if I'd had the
right.
opportunity, I'd been a distance runner. But you said you played the offense and defensive line, which
Yeah,
isn't your typical distance
I'm
running.
I'm not a fast person. I'm not a twitchy person. So I was not big enough to really. I was the size of probably a running back or a defensive back,
Okay.
but I did not have the skills to do that. But I was willing to go get buried every play. So
Yeah,
I played defensive tackle most of the time and kind of tried to make as big a mess as possible so
yeah.
the linebackers could do their thing.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I was an offensive lineman and wasn't very, I'm way bigger than I was, back in high school. And just, I think playing on the line, especially the offensive line, but I'm biased. It makes you a special person. Like if you
Yeah,
really get into it, it's a selfless
you
endeavor.
learn how to just love being on a team, and
Yeah.
that's where I
Yes.
learned that.
Yes. 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 So what is a guy who's homeschooled, who can't play football his senior year? There is no track team. Did you do something else senior year or what do you do?
No, I worked at a pizza place, and got ready for college, and
So
dual enrolled at Grand Rapids Community College in some math classes, and graduated.
and track, so
And
track is not in your mind
correct,
at all. It's just
not
another,
yet.
yeah, I've seen the Olympics or whatever. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love the Olympics. That's the
Yeah.
one thing, um, like the Michael Johnson double is like
Yeah.
one of my childhood sports memories.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's kind of like I was thought was that was sweet and always loved the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started initially.
It is interesting, people who are alive today. We've seen Usain Bolt set the 200-meter world record, 100 and things like that, and the 400 record for Wade and those guys. But that 200-meter Michael Johnson, for us who are of age to be able to watch TV, it's a little bit like like other like kind of natural disasters, like you remember where you were. I think everybody who saw Michael
Yeah.
Johnson set around 1932, I can still remember. I remember almost no stats. I still remember 1932, gold shoes. I
Yep.
remember where I
Gold
was.
spikes.
I was in a
So
bar
cool.
having a beer because I just ran the corporate 5K in Chicago. It just was. It's iconic. It was iconic.
Right. Yeah.
So as you graduate, you're looking at college. What are you thinking about being as an adult? What are you thinking? Like, are you want to be a teacher?
Um,
Or
so I came from a blue collar home. My dad was a machinist and uh I ended up going to Grand Valley and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I took some intro to machining courses at GRCC. Ended up transferring to Grand Valley into the engineering program. Um, and spent a few too many years doing that because wasn't a great student at first. Um, but I figured it out, graduated.
no sports. You're not playing on the
No
club
sports.
club
Nope.
football
Mm-mm.
team or anything. You're just
No. I mean,
you're
played pickup stuff with friends as much
yeah
as possible.
yeah
Started distance running. Well, actually, so back it up. In
yeah
high school, I started running a little bit, um, 5K stuff with my dad.
uh-huh.
There was a new football coach that was hired, and everybody knew that he likes to run people. And so dad was like, you have to get ready for this. And so I started going on runs for dad. He was a runner,
Huh.
um, cross country in high school and, road racing, 5Ks and stuff as an adult. So that's where
Yeah
I
yeah.
got that from a little bit. But yeah, I worked at a pizza place in high school and gained a little bit too much weight. Started running as a way to lose that weight in
Mhm.
college, realized, oh, this is fun. I like this. I'm better at it than I was at other stuff.
Oh.
Scratches the competitive itch. And yeah, that became like my primary hobby at that point.
So, okay, that's a good term, hobby. So
Yep.
running, which the hobby of running is not track and field.
Right.
It's there's some parallels, but it's not the same. You end up graduating from Grand Valley, so you're a Laker,
I'm a
which is
Laker,
which is
anchor
funny.
up.
What a great track program they
Well,
have. So
yeah,
it's
that's the
funny that
ironic thing,
yeah,
right?
that's so funny. Yeah, if you would have told me, hey, I'm gonna have you on the podcast. You're like, great. I'd be like, hey, so where'd you go to school? Grand Valley. I'd be like, oh wow, you must have been pretty good. I would immediately like, oh, you must have been pretty good because they're good. Yeah. Okay, that's so funny. All right, so you graduate with an engineering degree?
Yep. Mechanical engineering. Yep.
Wow. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're going to
Yep.
go on to, I mean, engineering
Yeah,
that's a big
I
major.
worked I started interning junior year at a automated machine designer.
Yeah.
Got hired when I graduated, and it was a yeah mechanical engineer primarily in automated machine design for a few years.
So what does somebody do with that major when they graduate? What do you?
You can do a lot. There's a lot of stuff. Mechanical engineering can bring you a lot of places. Um, Lots of sitting behind a computer, drawing things in CAD. So our wheelhouse was making machines that make stuff. So think of if you've ever seen videos of yellow robots putting cars together,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff.
Okay. So, we're a manufacturer, so we don't necessarily, we do have some computer robot welding and robot building and things like
Hmm.
that. In fact, all of our hurdles are done on this robot welder, which is just crazy, crazy looking out there. So we have some of that. Yeah. Okay. So
Yep.
those
So
are,
if you look
those
at
are,
that stuff, that's what I basically the kind of stuff I worked on.
oh, cool. Okay. So
Yep.
that seems kind of cool.
Yep. It was fun.
Okay.
Good
But
job.
we're not doing that anymore. So
No, we'll get to that later.
yeah, well, okay. So you graduated engineering. You actually, did you say you went into work or did you go to grad school? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Nope, no grad school.
Okay.
Was hired by the company that I interned with on
Yep.
graduation, and I was
Got
there
it.
for a few years. Um, Ended up making a few career moves, trying to find the right fit based on hours and product and location, stuff like that.
Well, okay, that's interesting to me because like I'm a guy who, when I got into coaching, in 10 years of coaching, I went to 5 different institutions because I was searching for something.
Hmm.
So when you said you were searching for what like like the easy question is to say, what were you searching for? And I don't mean like, oh, a bigger paycheck or what. Like you had to
It was
be
never
looking.
that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There had to be something you're like, yeah, I'm just not satisfied with this. So let me try over here. What
Yeah.
was, can you think about that time? Like, what were you searching
I
for?
was looking for, I'm a people person. I realized that a little later in life, but I like people. And the work I did was fun. There were a lot of cool projects I got to work on. A customer in particular that I wish I could mention here, but signed an NDA at some point and probably
It's not
probably
worth it.
shouldn't bring that out.
It's not worth
Um,
it.
um, it was fun work, but like the designing a machine that puts together another bracket for a Ford truck that I'm never going to see, and the manufacturing industry, I've got a love-hate relationship with it. I love making things, I love designing things, I love tinkering,
Hmm.
but like consumerism is not exactly my thing.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually, and this is down the road, but eventually it led me to teaching. So I teach manufacturing and engineering now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So, okay, the reason I asked that question about what you're searching for is because you had to be continue working towards it. And I wondered if it had to do something with people.
it
And you
is
mentioned that. And so
100%.
so teaching people, I mean, that makes
Yep.
complete sense. Yeah. And you
Yep.
said you kind of came to that later in life, like as far as like
Yep.
the people side.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't realize, I think I realized I realized probably in my late 20s that, people mean a lot to me. So,
Hmm. That's cool, man.
yep.
Boy, you were born to be a coach, and you just didn't know it at that point, you know?
Yeah.
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 Oh man. So okay, you're working. You're searching for something. You're searching for some kind of almost like a I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like a connection is
Yep.
really what
That's
you know.
probably a good way to describe it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's interesting
And I
as
think, I think, and this is the whole, like the homeschool thing. Like I loved being on a team, but the community aspect is lacking. Like
oh
I'm
yeah,
very close with my family, but
yeah,
the broader community part is like I was searching for that my whole life.
yeah. That's
Because you're not
interesting.
connected to people who are proud of being a part of the same thing together.
You said you came to that later in life, so maybe you didn't even couldn't even realize maybe it was happening while it was happening.
Right,
Did you
exactly.
struggle with that? Because yeah, I didn't even think about homeschooling of like, my kids go to school, public school. It's like, there's 30 kids all around
Right.
and there's, good kids, bad kids, they're interacting with everything. And homeschooling, unless you
Yeah,
had brothers and
you're
sisters or anything.
yeah, I've got six siblings, and so
Holy
we're
geez,
close.
Colin. You had your own classroom. What do you,
Yeah, it's true. Well, we're all spread apart.
yeah.
But so I'm very close with my family, but still like
But
there
they're
was some
family. That's different from
yeah,
a
it's
stranger
family.
you meet at
Yeah.
the mall or at the school or down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, being united under like a specific community was like what I wanted for a very long time.
Did you
So,
find a little bit of that in the football team?
yeah, I loved, yes, I
Hmm.
think I found that there. Like I said, I wasn't very good, but I loved everything about it. So a lot of people
Hmm.
hate practice, like they just want to go play, but I was like, practice, sign me
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
Practice canceled, worst day ever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Love my teammates, just want to be around it all the time.
What about college? Because now you are in a classroom of 200,
I
maybe if you
started,
take.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
started finding some of that there in college. I was I was too busy not failing to, I think, appreciate it though.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. That makes sense. So, this searching, I love that. I mean, again, the epitome of a coach is the people and the
Hmm.
kids that you connect with, and even your connection amongst peers. So I love this journey you're taking us through. So you start leading into teaching. So now, how did you get there though?
Well,
Because
that's we should probably talk about that later.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
So when I was actually in college, um, I would coach football for the team I played for about, I think it was almost 10 years, I think 9 years.
The homeschool.
Yeah.
Oh,
So a guy at church, if it's like my dad's age, family friend, knew him really well. He knew I played, and he asked me, he was a coach of a fifth and sixth grade team at the time. And so he asked me, I think I was 20, 19 or 20. He asked me if I want to start coaching with him because he just needed an assistant.
hmm.
So I was like, absolutely. And started coaching youth football. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was 20 years old.
It's, at some point, Colin, this is a track and field podcast. So we do
We'll get
got to,
there.
okay, okay.
We'll
All
get
right, all
there.
right, all right,
We'll
cool.
get there.
Uh, so that was part of, I think, if I had to guess, a little bit of like seeds of your searching for people, because you had that during
Right.
college, and then you go into a much more. I love how you put that about, making another robot that makes this widget on this one truck that, I know someone's driving it. That's great, and they're probably driving their kids to practice or whatever. And that's
Right.
awesome, but it's hard. It's several levels removed
Yeah.
from that robot you're working on.
Yeah.
So this coaching this youth football team was kind of maybe a little bit of the seeds being planted of like, oh, okay, I like being around
Yes.
and
Oh,
seeing kids
absolutely. Yeah.
succeed. Okay, so where do we go from there?
So I was with them. It was what the West Michigan Christian Patriots was the team, and
Hmm.
I was there for I went from fifth and sixth grade team all the way up to the high school team. Ended up being their head coach for a little bit at the end. I think it was year nine. And it was fun, good times. But then me and my wife had a baby, and he was, I think, one or two in between that and work and everything. It was just, a lot
You
of
know it.
same story from a lot of coaches. So,
Mhm. So a lot of people, not just coaches in
yes.
that one. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, put that away for a bit,
Mhm.
and just focused on family and work.
I don't know. I don't know very much about homeschooling at all. At all. Did you homeschool your kid, or if you have?
No,
Yeah.
he's public school.
Yeah. Did you
Yep.
do that because of the experience that you had?
Yeah.
Not that your experience was negative necessarily, but
No, and that's the crazy thing because
yeah.
like you can't I wish some things were different, but you can't really change things. Like what your experiences make you who you are,
Right.
right? So do I wish I had some more opportunities when I was that age? Absolutely. Can I control that? No.
Right.
And I am who I am today because of the stuff we did.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yep. But
I'm
yeah,
a
so Connor and Ivy are both Granville Public.
Oh, nice. I love that. I'm a huge Vanilla Ice fan, and one of his very famous sayings, only for us fans, no one else knows this saying, is "Who we are is who we were is who." Gosh, I think I actually have it in my phone. It's exactly what you just said there about who we are is we are who we are because of who we were. This is how much a dork I am. I literally have that quote right here in my phone in my photos. I kept it. We are who we are because of who we were. So that's exactly right. What we've been in the past is what makes us up to who we are today. And boy, I really like who I am today. So even all the bad things of who I was, that happened and things like that, I'm glad they happened and wouldn't change a thing. So I love that. That's very cool. Well, having a child will change your life pretty
Hmm.
drastically as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So your father, you're searching, you're coaching. Where do we keep going? Keep us moving forward here.
Yeah, so in 2019, one of the jobs I ended up in was it was another machine design house, but it was a smaller company, probably 10 people, really specialized, and it was close to home, and I ended up there. And then I got laid off from there about a year and a half in because the economy tanked at that point
Hmm.
for a little
Hmm.
bit. And so that industry um, didn't do well for a little bit. And I was in a basically a uh, I was in a position of what's the word? I was expendable.
Yeah.
I was for
Yeah.
them. So not in a bad way, just like they couldn't afford me.
Yeah.
So I got laid off. And at this time I knew I wanted to get out of manufacturing if possible. I didn't know
Hmm.
what it was that I could do next. I just knew that I wanted to take life somewhere else. And that's when um and at this point we're way past football, but I knew I wanted to coach still. Running is huge and become educated in track and college track and pro track. Like basically pro track became like bigger to me than pro football to watch.
Really?
Diamond League marathons and everything. So I became
Wow.
a bigger fan of that sport during this entire time. Um, and was interested in becoming a distance coach.
Huh.
Um, Because to me, like I think one thing I learned in football is if you're like if you're a good coach, I really believe you can pick up um almost any position. I know there's a lot of coaches out there who think, oh, you need experience in the event. You can't coach throws unless you were a thrower. You can't
Right.
coach jumps unless you were a jumper, whatever.
Right.
Um, I think we've seen enough coaches that are really successful that if you're a good coach,
Yeah.
you
Like,
can learn. Like at some point I had to coach defensive backs because I
yeah.
had to, right? I didn't play defensive back. I played defensive tackle.
Right.
Anyway, so when I was laid off, looking through all these job positions, and at that point, Byron Center needed a track coach, and I had no idea what the depth of need was. I didn't know if it was an assistant or what. I applied for it. This is in February, and the season starts in March. Um, and a week before the season starts, I get called in for an interview. I have some coaching experience. I had no idea if that was going to get me anything or not. And this is where the story gets kind of crazy because they need boys and girls head coach. The previous coach and I think there were a few assistants. They basically resigned after the previous season. The only person they had was a throwing coach who's one of my assistants and one of my best friends now, Aaron Ide.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so
Right.
Aaron
Right.
spent like an entire winter thinking that, hey, have you guys called anybody yet? You got a coach yet? You have a head coach yet? Anything going on? Aaron was going on vacation in the end of February, thinking he was going to have to come back and become a head coach, which was not what he was interested in at that point.
Right.
Um, anyway, so I interview. Um, they don't have a lot of I don't think they have anybody like really, really qualified for it. They interviewed me and another guy who had some track experience. I believe he went to Grand Valley actually. He's from the east side of Michigan, had some high school coaching experience, but he didn't want to be head coach. So he's got track experience, but he doesn't want to be head coach. And so they offered me that job, which I was at that point completely unqualified for, um, but knew how to learn things on the spot. I'm really excited about it. Um, and they called me and offered me the job like 3 days before the season started.
Okay. A lot to unpack here.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there.
Just in that. Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you for your openness and authenticity regarding being laid off. And the reason I say that is because I've learned actually through the podcast here that, it is good when we show that bad things have happened to us and we have come through the other side. I'm reminded of Karen Dennis, now retired. Just got into the Drake Relays Hall of Fame. She was on the show and she goes from UNLV to Ohio State. And I asked what I thought was a pretty softball question. I'm like, oh, well, why'd you go from UNLV to Ohio State? It's a pretty like, duh, right? And she goes, well, Mike, I was fired. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. I was like, and from our pre-interviews, kind of pull the curtain back here for you guys and gals that are listening. They get to tell the story the way they want to tell it. There's no requirements. I do zero research, so I know none of that's going on here with Colin. This is all new to me as well. And so with Karen, I had no clue. I just, she just told me she went to Ohio State. I'm like, okay. And so I asked her, I was like, Karen, I was like, you get to tell the story how you want to say it. Like, and you openly volunteered that, you were fired. And she talked to us about why and all that kind of stuff. And I asked her why did, you could have not said that. You could have just been like, well, Mike, I'm from the Midwest and it's Ohio State, right? And all that kind of stuff. And she's like, it's important, as a coach of young people, it's important for me to show other people that, sometimes bad things happen to you
Hmm.
because of what you do and sometimes without any control, and you can still bounce back from it. So now anytime someone is so open and authentic like that, to me, I just want to say bravo, because there are people out there that will go through that. They don't know it right now. You're listening and you're going to get laid off. You're going to get fired unjustly and maybe justly sometimes. And it's not the end of the world.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, maybe the better way of saying that is you get to choose if it's the end of the world or
Right.
not. Meaning,
Exactly.
like you can either wallow and pity yourself, and I'm sure you may be for mental health. Maybe that's good for some time period, a 24-hour time period, right, or something like that. but you get to make the decision to get back on your feet and get back to it. And obviously you did that here, Colin. Okay.
Yep.
So first of all, just want to say thanks for being so open and authentic there. Now, the audacity that you get hired as the
I
head
know it is. That's a good way to say it. It's crazy.
so it's interesting because you know this well, Colin. I live my life on Twitter, right? And so I think literally just this past weekend, between flights and hotels, I think I saw a tweet where it was like, how dare you coaches? And they were blaming high school coaches. And I don't like when we necessarily pick high school versus college, because trust me, there's some college side to this as
Oh yeah.
well. That you're only there for the paycheck. You're only there. You don't do anything to learn your event and things like that. And someone will pipe in and say, well, these ADs have to stop hiring people who have no experience and blah blah. And it's like, well, first of all, the AD has a pool of applicants that may only be two people, for
Right.
crying out loud, right?
So on the other side of that, like I get to hire my own coaches, and when I hire somebody, like there, I don't get a huge stack.
Yeah, yeah.
I get like whenever I put that posting out there, and I get who I get, and it is what it is.
I
You
wish,
pray that you get
yes,
people with experience.
I wish when specifically high school, because it's usually regionalized for their hiring, right?
Hmm.
When they put out an assistant coach or head coach for track and field, I wish there was 100 awesome track coaches playing, for that. But sorry.
Nope.
Sometimes, not sometimes, maybe every high school in some form or fashion or some time frame, you got to teach someone to be a coach. They've never coached before, and you got to, all right, come be my assistant. I'll show you what it means to coach
Exactly.
high jump and then go coach in ed and all that kind of stuff. So, but what's interesting to me about you is, so you knew kind of like, okay, I like this coaching thing. You've done the football coaching stuff,
Hmm.
and
Oh, I loved it. I wanted to get back into it,
and,
and I wasn't sure how, and that yeah, we
and,
figured it out.
and I've said this a lot that, this is episode 300 and something. So I've done this 300 plus times. And I'll say that there's no one like path to coaching. Like there's so many different paths, but I do at some point at like 300, I'm thinking like, okay, well, Collins is going to be just like maybe guest number 100 or something. I don't think, and my memory is not great. And again, you could forgive me for 300 different interviews. I'm not sure. This feels like the first time a kind of a track fan became a coach. Usually we
Right.
become track fans like maybe through our athleticism, or oh, I became a coach and then I kind of started liking this. You were like, this track stuff's kind of cool, man. The marathons and diamond leagues, and
Yep.
I should go coach it. That's
Right.
amazing. So what do knowing you now, you're obviously a very responsible adult who, I know what's in front of me. I don't want to injure the kids and
Right.
harm them and things like that. So what did they call you up and say, hey, all right, man, you're the best we got, Colin. Hopefully they didn't
For
say that.
better or
For
worse.
better or worse, brother.
Right.
So like, what's the first thing you do? Like, do you call someone do you immediately research coaching education? You go get a book? What's like the first, like, okay, in a week these kids are going to be in front of me. What do
Right.
I do here?
Well, so thankfully we had a throwing coach. So
Mhm.
check. Okay.
So that
So
gave you, so he knew like, hey, we go to these meets. This is how we get to the
yeah,
meets,
so
and like he kind of gave you some blocking and tackling stuff.
yeah, there was a lot in the first 2 years that Aaron pulled me through
Thank
as
God
far
for
as
Aaron.
like some of the mechanics, like because like through running self-trained, like I got deep into it enough that like, Jack Daniels,
Hmm.
all the I was getting pretty deep into training. So like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
training part for distance runners is it's not that difficult. Like if you
Hmm.
know how to
Hmm.
coach, that's pretty easy. Now, I don't
Hmm.
want to say easy. It's you can learn it. So I was good there.
Yeah, yeah.
But then like the other guy that was hired did our sprints and jumps.
The,
Um,
the, the guy who had experience but didn't want to be the head
yes.
coach. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he took sprints and jumps.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it was the three of us for that year. And yeah, it was just a crash course
Yeah.
in how just the mechanics of how Michigan high school track worked.
You
Um,
leaned on
and
Aaron and your other coach, or did you like, hey, I'm the head coach, so guys, you listen to me.
no, no, I am a collaborative person. So in the career that I formerly had, like it's all team based. Like
Okay.
when we're designing a machine, you got the mechanical designer, you got the electrician, you've got the electrical engineer, you've got the
Okay.
computer engineer, you've got your plumbers, and it is a
Yeah.
team effort.
Yeah.
And so,
And you
like,
were
pretty
a football lineman, so
right.
I mean, there is
The
no individual
humility is
there.
built in,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes. Okay.
I wasn't one of those receivers or defensive backs or anything, right?
Exactly.
It might be a different story. Um, but no, so it was leaning on them for their expertise, and that's how I want to do it anyway. Like, I don't want to micromanage. My sprint coach now, he does a good job. I'm going to let him, we're going to talk about lineups, and if we have a kid who fits in multiple places, and right now we have a few of those, like we put our heads together and figure out what we got to do, but I don't need to manage his workouts. He's got it under control.
Mhm.
And that was the attitude I had then. And thankfully they knew what they were doing. But yeah, just like the mechanics of registering for meets, which meets, um, uh, just all that stuff, communicating in the school. We didn't have an AD at that time. The previous AD had retired. There was an interim who was a
So,
guy
so
probably my age who was,
did you apply for that job too? I mean,
I
why
did
not?
not.
Why not? Why
Nope.
not?
No, I'm not interested in that one. Thank you. But yeah, so and I think that's part of why I got the job is like the interim AD is
He's
like
like, who
if we don't get a
cares?
coach, if we don't get a coach, then he's going to be in there running it, and he doesn't want that. So we'll hire this guy.
That's funny.
Um, right. So yeah, it was just a huge learning curve.
Are you so I'm just remembering your background is in engineering and you brought up, very team-based, so like scrums and Six Sigma and kind of that kind of stuff. Did you bring that to like your role as the head coach? Like, were you
Yeah,
very like,
we are as organized as possible. We have a
yeah,
spreadsheet for everything.
yeah, yeah, there we go.
So we grew into it. The first year was a lot of just talking back and forth.
Hmm.
Not a ton of electronic stuff yet, but
Hmm. Hmm.
now it is all about organization, making sure that we know what's going like we all know what's going on. I try to keep communication flowing,
Hmm.
have a record of everything so people aren't surprised,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There's nothing worse than being surprised by something, right? So I want to make sure that all that information is there and people know what's going on. Yeah.
In this first year, when you go to meets, are you picking the brain of other coaches? Like you guys are doing your splits for your 2 milers. You're like, hey man, so what do you
A
do with
little
Johnny
bit,
over there?
not a ton. Like I said, I was fairly confident in distance training at that point. The what the so if we back up a second, the one event I didn't mention that we had covered was pole vault.
Hmm.
So I guess what event I got to learn how to coach my first year.
Oh wait,
Pole
wait.
vault.
I must have misheard you. It was an event you did not have
Did not
covered.
have covered.
Oh, I thought you said you did have covered. I
No,
thought you were going to tell me
didn't
some
have
wise old.
covered. Nope.
Oh, bro, maybe
Yeah.
one of the,
Yep.
I don't.
Technical.
Yeah, and I never want to like, oh, this event's harder to coach, but I mean, pole vault,
It's
especially for a guy who's never. I
I
mean,
would say it's not hard to coach. It's probably hard to coach. I shouldn't say that. It is time intensive.
hmm.
If you
Safety is a lot, right?
safety, I think I disagree with the people who think that pole vault's unsafe. I
Well,
think
no,
that,
no, not it's not unsafe if it's coached or done well, but
right.
you're putting a kid 10 feet in the
Yeah,
air. Falling from 10 feet can hurt them.
that's true.
You send your distance runner off for a 10 miler, I'm doing something kind of crazy, or 10 miler for a high schooler, maybe. They may, if you keep doing that, get a stress fracture, maybe. But it's less likely they're going to get injured, where a pole vaulter has a little bit higher
Yeah, there's risk there.
risk.
But again, like if we're following the rules and being safe, it's not there are some people who think that it shouldn't even be a sport. And I'm like,
Oh, they're
we're
just
not.
wrong.
No,
Yeah,
they're
they're
just
wrong.
wrong.
They're wrong.
Yeah, so but yeah,
Hey,
it was
I appreciate the distance guy here, by the way, not having that attitude. I don't want to pick on my distance coaches, but you easily could have been like, "Hey guys, we're just not
I think
prepared
that
for
there
this."
are some distance coaches who need to wake up a little bit.
Oh boy, I
And
did not say that guy. That was it. So his
that was
email
me.
address is C.
I I think there are some distance coaches who could learn from the other events.
Okay. All right. Well, they will for the
Um,
Gil 1918 project.
right.
Little plug there. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So you have to do the pole vault too.
Yeah.
Um, so talk to me about that, because that would intimidate me.
It
That's one event I
was
never coached.
I mean, it was a lot of researching, a lot of crash course, like, okay, start in ground level.
Not a
And
great adjective to use with pole vaulting. crash course.
Oh, that's funny.
What
But
did
no,
you
yeah, started from the bottom up and try to have a plan so that like we could have practice two days a week. And
like?
I got to the
I feel like I could accidentally coach a distance runner. Not well, but like I could, I know
right.
like I mean, if I was just totally ignorant, I would literally just like, hey, let's just run like 8 miles a day. I don't know, that probably make you better as a 2 miler, and they'll get better. They won't be as good as they could be, but they'll get better. Pole vaulting, and you watched the Olympics and you're fans of Diamond League, so you saw it, but there's
Right.
still like you don't
It's
know
a
how to
lot.
bend a pole, or should you even bend a pole with a beginner?
Right.
There's
No,
that's
and that
a
was
whole
so
different.
the talking to people was that event. That was
Mm,
the one where I went in. There's some freaking good pole vault coaches around here, and
yes.
so had some conversations. Um, and I got to the point where I could get girls to like 8 feet, and I could get guys to about 11, 6, maybe 12 feet. But
Yeah.
with the amount of time I had available, that was a pretty hard cap. And
Good
that's
point.
where I want to say it's not that it's hard, it's that you have to spend a lot of time in video
Yeah.
dissecting stuff,
Right.
really breaking it down with your kids. And as a head coach, there
Mhm.
just wasn't that time.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
thankfully, a few years ago, I found a pole vault coach, and
Mm.
we're set there now.
Nice, nice, nice.
Thankfully.
I mean, someone who has a background in track and field, like if you'd run track in high school or not even college, but just in high school, stepping onto the track to coach is still extremely hard.
It
Even if
is.
you were a hurdler, like again, you don't have to be a great hurdler, but even if you're a hurdler, you're like, okay, well, I know I didn't three step in high school, but I know you're supposed to three step. I got to
Hmm.
figure out how to coach that. For you to just come from this, like, I wonder if it's a little bit like, I wonder if it's advantageous for you because that means you also didn't come with a lot of bad habits that we pick up as athletes and things like that.
Yeah, but I wonder how many, for my first vaulters, I really wonder how many bad habits I gave them. It was
Yeah,
probably
sure,
a lot.
sure, sure. Did your, engineering's a lot of angles, math, things like that. Did
Yeah, so that helped a little bit, like being able to understand geometry
mm,
and force in general. There are a lot of, I have a biomedical minor, so I had to take biomechanics. And so I had a leg up a little bit in that, like a lot of the words I recognized and techniques,
oh,
like
right.
wasn't totally foreign, but
Yeah.
still putting into practice and figuring out, okay, how come I can't get this kid to do this thing? That was the hard.
Yeah. 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 So was this the 2020 season?
So 2019, 2020 was wiped out by COVID in Michigan.
What was the first year though? 2019?
2019,
Okay.
2019, spring 2019.
So, yeah, and this isn't a great question because 2020 is next. What I want to ask is what because you don't get the degrees and jobs and experiences you had without being a learner. You don't get through homeschool probably without being a learner because you don't have anybody
Right,
else to rely on, right?
right.
Uh,
A lot of figuring it out.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna ask the question, but it's not a great question because 2020 happens. My question is, what was the thing that you improved the most in that second year? Like, I feel like you're kind of guy who makes a lot of leaps and bounds. I wondered if there was like one thing of like, oh, my second year, what I nailed? I nailed the organization of the distance runners and pole vaulters, or I nailed the organization of how we get to meets in the warm up and things like that. But you went into 2020, which means you had no
Yeah,
track
so
season.
we got better. We started the fact of the matter is our numbers went up, so we had a bigger team.
Are you
And
teaching at the school at this point?
not quite yet. That comes a little later.
How'd you do that then? Because
So
you're not in the hallways.
no, so I got a job, probably my most fulfilling engineering job. I got a job with a commercial mechanical service company, so designing like heating and ventilation for
Mm,
commercial buildings.
mhm.
And I told them when I got hired, hey, I also got this job and I really want to do this. So will you guys make it work if you hire me? And they're like, yep, go for it.
Oh,
Um,
bravo.
and
Thank
so I
you.
had a lot of they gave me a lot of flexibility, a lot of
Love that.
making up work at night and on weekends.
Love that.
But yeah, so I wasn't in the hallways. I think, yeah, kids just saw a little bit of a change in the team,
Hmm.
and we had a pretty solid middle school program. So
Yep.
always had a ton of
Huge.
freshmen coming out.
Huge.
Um, and yeah, so I hired two more people for the next year.
Okay.
So I had a few more assistants, and then we had our um we had 4 days of practice, and we were starting to smooth out communication and smooth out training details and stuff. And then the funny part is I was going to take the next week off because our we had a baby due. Um, Good time for it. Very good time for it.
Oh yeah.
Track season, baby due, and gonna go run the Boston Marathon as well.
Oh, you?
And yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, hold on now. Now I feel like I disrespected you because because I basically called you a hobby jogger because I was like, running's a hobby, that's different.
I'm not offended by that statement.
But you qualified for Boston though. That's a
Yeah,
bro. Wow.
yeah. So I ran it in 2017 and was gonna run it in 2020. Anyway, we've got four
What's your
days of practice in.
no, hold on. You don't get to just I get to ask the questions. What's your PR in the marathon?
2:44:32.
Dude, for a kid who had no experience, you didn't
Right.
run cross country.
I probably should have run cross country and track. That's
You
the thing.
you did nail
You
that.
know?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a no contact. Of course. Yeah. Wow, bro.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, you just have no background. I mean, this is just like that makes me feel like people are just walking out right here outside this window that, if they trained, they'd be a 2-4. Like,
Well, I believe that
because
that's
no
the
one would have
case,
looked at
though.
you and thought that.
No, probably not. I
Yeah.
think that's the case, though. I really believe that, that more people, I was disgusted with the American distance running thing until very recently
I'd
because
say
it's
we're
like,
not bad. Yeah. Yeah.
we're getting there.
Yeah.
Like Grant and Cole are doing
Yeah.
some good
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. So we
But
won
there
a
were too
couple
many
gold
years.
medals. We won the
Yeah.
steeple or we medaled in
Yeah.
the steeple. Yeah, we didn't bad.
But for too long, like American marathoning was
Yeah.
not as good as it should have been. So,
Sure.
um,
Wow. Okay, keep going. Sorry, that floored me
yeah.
because I'm the kind of guy that I want to run a marathon, so I can say that I ran a marathon. Mine would be like 6 hours or something. Like
Hey,
I actually
that's
set up.
fine. That's fine with me. Go do it.
I'm gonna say I set out a plan. That's a plan's a long word there for what I did. I thought it'd be so cool. I looked up what marathon gives the biggest participant, finisher medal.
Yeah,
And there's a marathon in Little Rock that gives out like that's their thing. They give out the biggest, and it's like you get to after we get done, you got to Google Little Rock Marathon
I'll do that.
participation. It puts Flavor Flav to shame on how big it is, right? And then I tried to run, and my knee said, "No, bro, this is not going to happen." So I started thinking like, can I walk it? But they have a cap at like 8 hours, and
Yeah,
I was like, I can walk. I could probably get to an 18 minute, per pace mile, maybe, and that wouldn't have done it. So I'll never run the marathon. That's basically what this
yeah,
goes down to. So I'm amazed that people, even though I'm not a distance guy, I am, and marathoning as a participation finisher idea is a little controversial to people who actually run fast as well. Dude, you're not racing. It's an event. It's what it
yeah.
is.
But
It has its place.
I think it's good for people,
Yeah.
and it also like what the I don't know what the I'm okay calling them snobs. What the snobs don't realize is that those people subsidize our hobby.
That's a good point.
Right? We're not going to have marathon. We're not going to have a lot of
Yeah,
5Ks and a lot of marathons if people don't want to just go do it,
that's a good
right?
point. That's a good
So
point.
there's no point in complaining about that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, dude, that's cool. 240 marathon, a 240 marathoner that's fascinating. I love that. That's the kind of hat I would wear. I'd just wear 240 and be like,
Well, there's
yes, we
always
can.
someone faster. There's always someone
Yeah,
faster. My friends are all faster than me. So
but yeah, but still, 240 is not, that's amazing actually. If you'd have told me 350, like I mean, oh man, you broke four. Like that's amazing. That is
and I
amazing to me.
think I love people who do that too. So
When you started out by saying two, I was like, holy crap, dude, you've been the two range. That's a whole different world.
yeah.
Okay, keep us moving forward. So things are getting better. You're about to take a
Yep, things are
week
getting
off. You're
better.
gonna be ready to run
Yep.
Boston.
And then so it's the Thursday of our first week of the second season, and that's when the hammer drops.
Mm,
And it's weird.
mm.
Really weird. So we go to the hospital on Friday for a C-section, and that was a bizarre experience. Like being the only visitors in the hospital were the dads in the maternity ward. It
Wow.
was weird.
Like
Usually
like
hospitals are like crazy busy. There's people
yeah,
everywhere. No, it was a ghost town. It was
like
very bizarre.
zombie
Yeah.
apocalypse.
That's what
Yeah.
it felt like. We didn't know what was going on, like scared to touch stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Right.
weird.
At one of the most happiest times in your life. You're having your
Yeah.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Well,
man.
so the ironic part, and I give advice to new parents now, like be comfortable saying don't visit us because the recovery from that one was so much better for my wife than the recovery from the other ones
Because
because
no one got to visit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's probably really true, actually. Yeah. Wow. So
yeah,
did Boston get canceled that year
it did.
too? Okay.
Yep, it
Oh,
did.
yeah. So
So,
the world, I mean, I always say the world stopped that day. It really did.
yep, it did.
Wow. And
You
you're in your,
remember, I remember we got the like you saw on like Twitter and on Let's Run, NCAA indoors gets canceled, and that was weird.
I was there. Yeah.
And the week before, one of my coworkers was like, "You think we're gonna start getting quarantined?" And I was like, Never, no way." And then yeah, the next week we didn't see each other again for a few months. So
Wow. I remember when the NBA canceled like that Wednesday night. I was like,
yeah,
oh, it's real because that's
yep,
millions of dollars we're talking about, people. We ain't stopping for nothing if it ain't serious. And then
yeah,
either that, yeah, I think that Thursday is when I was in Albuquerque for Division Ones, and it's like, all right, well, yep, go home. I was like, oh my
yep.
God. I went back to my hotel room and I tried to become viral. I said, hey, let's make this the next internet challenge. And it was a video of me just washing hands. I don't even think we were really telling people to wash hands at that point, but I was like, oh, we probably should wash hands. It didn't go viral, but yeah. Uh, so what do you do? Um, you're so new to this. Like, does this really pull on your heartstring? Like, does it really,
It
does it
was
really?
disappointing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it was disappointing, but it is, well, I mean, is what it is.
Yeah.
I try to like, uh, in general, I try to not complain about stuff and just, okay, this is what we're given.
Mhm.
So we got to do what we got to do. And it's, yeah, not having that season sucked.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair.
Yeah.
But we got through it and, you know, we rolled into the next season and started doing like some of the improvements back to the original question,
Mhm,
started
mhm.
doing workouts in the hallways in the off season, started participating a little more. So Michigan has not an official indoor season, but it has a
Right.
club scene.
Yeah.
So we
Mitts.
started, yeah, MITS,
Hmm.
MITS,
Hmm.
MITS, Michigan
Hmm.
Indoor Track Series.
Yep.
Started signing kids up for that.
Had they done this before?
Yeah, a few here and there. Like they said like the previous coach, I think he brought a few kids and he would tell them what the stuff was, but he didn't make it real organized. Whereas I started, I wanted track, so if
Yeah.
we can go race, let's go do it.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, didn't really make it a really real official thing, but I was like, hey, do you want to go do this? You want to go do this? You want to go race? And so we would go to primarily the Grand Valley has 5 meets that they host, and we would go there. And so that was one of the next steps we took was actually turning kids who uh, they did track into track kids. So
Oh.
that was probably one of the next steps.
Explain what that means to you. That's interesting. I like this.
Well, it's a kid who, a football player is a football player. A volleyball player is a volleyball. They that's their thing. They do that. Basketball players, they play for 50 club teams and they're always in the gym. But we didn't have a culture of track athletes where that's their main sport. And that's what, they also play football or they also do something else in the winter, but no, track is their thing. And so slowly we started getting the hooks into kids and making that happen.
So it means like it's more and it's important to them. Like
Yes.
if I go out and I
Yes.
don't do well, who cares? I'm just here to I'm on the tech team
Right.
because my girlfriend's on the track team or whatever.
Right.
Versus, oh man, I had a bad race, coach. What happened? What do we do? What do we need to change? Like
Right.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah,
this is
exactly.
my thing. My identity is I am a track athlete, not
Yeah.
just I'm on the team.
One of the stories that Aaron tells is there was a conference meet, I don't know if it was the year before or 2 years before I started where like, kids would just dip out when their event was done
Hmm.
and it would got to the end where they had to like scramble to put a 4x4 on the track because okay, we got a distance runner left, we have a sprinter left, we have a discus thrower. Who else can we put on for the 4x4?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's just, I mean, track that's depressing.
yeah.
That's not how it should be. And now we're at the point where our 4x4 team went all state last year. And I think they're ranked number 3 in Division 1 in Michigan. So it went from being the last thing anybody wanted to do to that is, you know what? The 400 and the 4x4 is our favorite stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I asked you earlier, but because you said you increased your team roster, and so how did you do that? Because every high school coach we have here, like that is like the lifeblood of their
It is.
team, meaning work the hallways. Like
It is.
I've heard everything from you go find the kids that are cut from baseball, you go, you recruit the friends of your current team, you just see a kid in the walking in the gym, like, hey man, you're a pretty big dude, you want to come throw the shot? Like you're just
Yeah.
that's why I just we almost called the podcast the Mythbusters. This myth that high school coaches can't become successful college coaches. It's like, and usually the number one sentiment is like, well, they don't know how to recruit. And I'm like, man,
No, you have to.
they might recruit more than you, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And they're
It's
dealing with
hard, and you get
yeah,
kids who are like, sorry, I'd rather go play travel soccer. I'd rather go
right,
do this, right?
right,
Can I skip practice?
yeah,
It's hard, but like the cut baseball player, there was a kid. So during the COVID summer, I also started making a relationship with our strength and conditioning coach. We've got a really solid S&C program here.
wow.
Um,
Like
uh,
dedicated people, like
yes,
not a
yes, but
football
we're
coach who does it.
no, we have
Wow.
so we're a thir about 13 to 1400 students here.
Okay.
So we've got good resources,
Mhm.
and Joe Chiramonte is our strength and co conditioning coach. I have learned a ton from him.
Yeah.
Um, we don't see eye to eye on everything, especially like he's a Tony Holler to the death kind of guy. And if
Okay.
we ever run more than however much in practice, then we're gonna hurt everybody, right? Um, but yeah, so we just started doing summer, we call it Bulldog Power, summer Bulldog Power with him. And there was a kid who he had a triathlon, he was a freshman, had a triathlon shirt on. And so, hey, you gonna come run track? And he's like, no, I'm gonna play baseball. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Okay, well, you look like an athlete, but you should probably
Right.
run, but whatever. And he gets cut from the baseball team and comes out a week late, asks if he can join the team late. He does. Um, and he ended up being a good kid, one of my Volters. But then his brother is currently a junior, and he just out of nowhere this year, not out of nowhere, he's a great kid, great worker. He's running uh 11-1 and I think 22-5, and then
Yeah.
it turns out he's a 400 kid too, and he split 49 on our relay last week. So it's like
Yeah.
if I didn't recruit his brother and get his brother to come, I wouldn't have gotten Cooper.
Yep.
Um, and who knows where we'd be,
That's
right?
right.
So it's like, yeah, recruiting, you just got to go talk to the kid, go ask him. Like,
We've had many, many amazing high school coaches here, and literally not a single one has said, "Oh yeah, I just take who comes." Like, no, no, they hustle.
right.
You got to get the kids.
Ultimately, like, you know what? I'm gonna have the 100 kids that come out is who I'm gonna have,
Right.
right? So I can't come once that roster's there, I can't complain and got to do what I got to do, right? It is what it
Right.
is.
Right.
But and I think my goal is like I want to reduce the amount that I have to recruit, right?
Mm.
Um, of course, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get FaceTime and go into the weight room and work with the kids and tell them they should do it.
Right.
But like my goal is like make it the place they want to be.
Yeah.
Like make it a place that they love being. Make it so practice is the best part of their day. They want to be there. They tell that people care. Um, and I think that's a big part of the first few years is like I think they realized like, oh, the coaches here care. They want us to do well. We're not just hanging out. Like they actually care about the product we're putting on the field.
Right. You're asking for them to be invested into the team, to be that track
Yes.
athlete, not just someone who's on the team. Well, golly gee, you can't ask that if you ain't it. So you're
Right.
showing, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So 2019 first season, 2020, we all know what happens. 2021 is almost like the bounce back, maybe. Or
Yeah.
how did your participate like? And you made indoor more important starting in 21. How did like you had a team of in 2019 of X number of kids? Did you have like how did I know what national participation numbers been, so this is kind of where I'm going. Did you have less kids show up in
I
2021 and you had to like
think
rebuild back up, or
I think we had about 10 or 15 less on each side. So
yeah, yeah,
my first year, I want to say we had like because kids sign up, I get like for instance, this year I think I had 130 boys signed up at one point and 100 girls, and that between kids going out for other sports, so we're like the backstop for a lot of kids. Between that and then, 2 weeks in, they're like, "Oh, this is harder than I thought I was gonna be. See ya." We're down to this year, we're down to 92 and 80, I think,
Wow,
82.
it's a lot of
Um,
kids.
and so I think the first year we were about that. I think we had like 60 girls the first year.
Hmm.
Boys have always been about right about 100.
Hmm.
Girls, we went like 60, and then 20, I think we had like up to 70. Girls did go down a little bit
Hmm.
into 21,
Hmm.
but since then it's been steadily climbing again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that nationally. Obviously we pay attention to the national participation numbers, both number of teams and number of participants for, like I said, maybe obvious reasons for what we do here at Gill. And that's what it was nationally. It certainly was. And I don't know, I think a lot of people try to explain why and all that kind of stuff. Because you can talk yourself into both sides, right? Like, hey, they just got done with a year of no sports. Boy, the
Mhm.
hunger for sports, it's going to be more. And it's like, well, that's not what happened. So what happened,
And
right?
on the other hand, you had a bunch of eighth graders who probably didn't do it, and so they're not signing up as freshmen.
Oh, see, I didn't think,
And
yeah.
I don't know, I could probably go back through my old rosters and do the numbers on that, but that's just
Yeah.
another thing. So
That's interesting. I wondered a little bit, kind of like how we saw, part of my opinion, uh, we saw like collegiately and professionally, we saw times and distances really explode, right? And so everybody wants to talk, for distance, everyone wants to talk about the shoes and everybody thinks the tracks and things like that. And certainly those, I think, all play some part to it. But I also wonder, like, I think a lot of kids got a lot of recovery that they were overtrained. And so we got this like natural recovery and they super
yeah,
compensated back, right? So I wondered if there's a little bit like kids of like, I like track and it was cool. And I was a track athlete. I tried real hard. But boy, that this past year where I didn't have it, I was okay.
right.
Maybe I found out I like chess instead, or I want to be an engineer, so I'm going to do more. I think they kind of found other things. I
Yeah,
think that really shows how consistency is important. Consistency from your coach of like, I'm always going to be recruiting the hallways.
yep.
We're going to make the team a fun experience to be in. I think that consistency is, probably where did I hear this from? It was a marketing podcast actually, and it said B plus consistency beats out random A plus performance. So, being really good every once in a while is going to get beat from that kid who just, we also call that grinders or whatever, but that kid who shows up every day. It's the same with coaches, right? If you're consistent with your messaging and your, what you want your culture of your team to be and things like that, that will outweigh
And
you just getting after it one year. It's
and
not going to,
that's it. Like that's where culture, especially, like, it has to be consistent. There's no finished product ever.
yeah, yeah,
You have to hit the. I say, like, my speeches, but my pre-practice spiel every year is probably the same week to week as it was, like little tweaks here and there based on the current makeup of the team. But like
right.
we have these words, we have our athletic department values at Byron Center of effort, attitude, excellence, and respect. And so I always kind of circle around that and just use that as like the guiding light. And I
Yeah,
talk about it all every year. It doesn't change because if we don't come back to it consistently, like,
yeah.
it's not like, okay, we're done. We built the house. You know what? Our culture's here. No, it is always changing. And if you don't talk about it, it's probably not going to get better. Put it that way.
A lot of first time coaches, um, they coach how they were coached until they get coaching education and things like that, which also means, and this is kind of the first time I'm really kind of thinking about this and saying this out loud, that also means that they kind of build the culture based on how their culture was when they were athletes. You're coming from, like, you didn't have a track culture. It's not like you're like, oh
Right.
man, my high school coach, you know what he or she did really well. They did X, Y, and Z. And so I do that with our team. You're bringing culture from the private sector, youth, homeschool football. I mean, there are a
Right.
lot of differences from track on that. You're kind of the culture that you bring in want to have with your team is really a unique amalgamation of a lot of non track things.
It's true. However, I think that's not much different than like what a good track team is, because a good track team is an amalgamation of a lot of different people. Um, I think your track is so cool because it's bringing kids from depending on the size of your school, demographics are different, their grades are different, the clubs they're in are different. Um, Distance runners always tend to be smart nerds. Um, Sprinters tend to be more of the jock football player kind of kid. Um, uh, Jumpers, throwers, vaulters, they all have their own thing. And like the good track team brings all those kids together.
Mhm.
Like it's not, to me, I don't want my team to be, well, you have the sprinter group and you have this group and you have that group. Like, obviously you got to go to a meet and take care of business and do your thing well. And so it's hard to watch each other, but the team is going to be best when the kids are there for each other,
How do you,
regardless of what group they're in, what their main friend group is, you
yeah.
know?
I find high school coaches fascinating. Like I have just like a million questions to ask, but I want to make sure we get up to like to today. So,
Mhm.
so we went through 2019, not that we necessarily go year by year, but okay, 2021 we had to bounce back a little bit on our numbers through 2022. You're adding your culture to it. So, kind of give me how's the last couple of years been up to today? Like, and what I mean by that, I don't really want to know like how many county championships and kids you sent to
Right.
college, stuff like that, but like how you've grown as a coach and therefore have grown your team these past few
Yeah.
years.
Um, well, the biggest change was starting to teach, and I can tell that story in a little bit, but
Okay, yeah, finally. Jeez.
yeah, so so being able to um really be 100% myself is something I learned in the past year or so,
Mm,
both with coaches and with the kids. Like, um, early on, uh, I wasn't hiding anything, but pretty kind of guarded. Like, didn't want to look silly, didn't want to, uh, um, I like crazy challenges, so I wasn't worried about like saying, "Hey, we're gonna go try to do this," right? Like, and give the kids something hard to strive for, but still like not completely comfortable in my own skin yet.
mhm.
Um, and then my first 2 years of teaching just knocked that out of me. I realized, okay, I've just gotta, you know what? This is who I am, own it. The kids are gonna make fun of me. They're gonna put my face on a t-shirt at some point. Just got to own it. It is what it is. And I
Yeah.
think so the biggest thing is being able to okay, we have to have this conversation. We're gonna have it, not avoiding it. I've got assistant coaches that I've got to talk to and ask them a hard question. You know what? We're not going to avoid this stuff. I need help from my AD here. It doesn't matter if I want to try to do it myself. I got to go ask for help.
Mhm.
Um, and just like living with the uncomfortable stuff and then like letting what happens and not letting it keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing that's changed for me and made me a better coach in the past 4 years.
If you're comfortable with it, I'd love to kind of double click on what you said there. It's interesting. I was just at the Penn Relays this past weekend and was having a conversation with a very good friend, university coach, and we were talking about like the context was kind of like as a track athlete, um, like pretending to be who you're not. And we were talking about like in performance wise, like I want a full ride to the University of Florida, but I'm a 60-second 400-meter runner. It's like, bro,
Probably not
that's
happening.
not your identity. You're not, that's not you. And if you really do like think that you're that, which means you're fooling yourself, um, like that's not a really good life. Like there's like something else is for you. Like you maybe should be a great, maybe you're a coach, I don't know, or maybe you're an engineer, but like it's so freeing when you finally get to be who you are. And
Hmm.
and I think, it's interesting when you're talking about this aspect of life because I don't know that it's necessarily late in life. I think some people maybe figure it out as teenagers or and maybe some people don't find it out till they're 60 years old,
Right.
unfortunately. But when you almost like let the guard down, let the facade down, let what you think other people want to see of you, and instead of just being who you are, I like how you put that, comfortable in my own skin. I feel a little bad for those people, and not like in a demeaning pity way, but it's like, oh man, I want you to be you. Like that's
Yeah.
all I care. I don't want you to act like who you think I want you to be who society, who mom and dads, they put pressures on kids. I don't want you to be who you think other people think you should be. I want you just to be who you freaking are.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
that's so freeing when you finally get there. Did you kind of have that catharsis, or
I think,
what
yeah.
led to that, if you don't mind?
I don't, I lived most of my life like worrying about what people thought of me and worrying about
Mm-hmm.
being judged for stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it back here? So I don't know if you've heard of this book. I picked it up on Twitter at some point, The Twin Thieves, this one.
Oh, bro,
Dude,
a huge reader, first of
right.
all. And so I read a lot of stuff that doesn't impact me. That
That one.
judgment, what was it? The two things were judgment.
The twin thieves are fear of judgment and fear of failure.
Yes.
And that I love this for with my kids.
I messaged the author. I was like, bro, because fear of judgment, that's a big thing.
That
Judgment.
was that was
Yes.
mine. I am perfectly capable of saying we're gonna go do this and this and this. I'm gonna go try um running this time for a 5K or a marathon or whatever. And if I fail, I'm gonna do it again next year, no
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But worried about people judging me has
Oh,
was like the thing my entire life.
okay, I get this 100%. I'm with you. I work extremely hard not to judge other people. Like I just I know everybody's going through something. Even that person who cuts me off in the street on the road, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. They might have just hung up with their wife and they're getting a divorce. I don't know. I don't know. What's the matter? They didn't hurt me. What do I need to be mad for, right? So the judgment thing I get, but through your journey to this point, Colin, you have exemplified the opposite of like I don't care about judgment. A person who is like mm, in a cage of judgment, like oh, what other people think of me, doesn't just go I'm going to apply for this track coaching job.
It's kind of
You know
weird.
what I'm saying?
No, I can't
So,
quite
so
explain it. It was like
but I think what
I
it
was
shows is like because I validate what you said. And I think I believe exactly what you're saying. But I think the real Colin Hunter was always trying. Like there were little like
trying to break out.
little chinks in the armor. There's like,
Yep,
oh wait a minute, I can go and do
trying
this.
to.
I
Yeah,
can
there
go
was a
fail and fail
yeah.
in front of a lot of people. By the way, that wasn't some kind of solitary. You failed running a 5K, even though there was other 5K people. It's you. No
Right,
one knows what the frick your PR is and stuff like
right.
that,
Nobody
right?
cares.
But if you go fail as a track coach, boy, you had a huge number. You got 100 kids there, which means they got 100 parents, and
Right.
that's public, bro.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I figured out, like I said, probably the end of my second year of teaching that this is just going to be a lot easier if you are willing to be made fun of and willing to be the butt of jokes sometimes and willing to look silly. And it is a struggle some days, but I
Sure.
am, you know what?
Are you happier today?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
much happier.
I'm
That's
so
it.
happy for you, bro.
Thank you.
Did that book? So I read that book, I think 2 years ago, maybe three. Uh, and that book is it's football forward, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think. There's another great book. The author was a guest early on the podcast back in 2020. Lead for God's Sake, which is
Yep.
oh, have you read that?
Our AD
Oh,
made us read that a few years ago. I love that book
bro,
too. It's one of those ones where it seems so like kitschy, like so cliche, but man,
mm.
no, don't
Todd Gongler.
just
So I love book
easy
recommendations. So
read, good
yeah.
lessons, go read it.
So if you're listening, you just got two book recommendations. You got homework. So first of all, the Twin Thieves is football forward, and here's what's interesting. So both these books are other sport forward, meaning Twin Thieves has all football examples, and Lead for God's Sake with Todd Gongwer is a basketball forward. He's coming from a basketball family in Kentucky. Both of them are just first class. Like I said, I got to meet the author of Lead for God's Sakes, and he's actually a podcast guest. So you might actually, whatever app you're using now, search Lead for God's Sake or Todd Gonger, and it'll bring it up. But it's just so impactful because I think we get in our bubble of track. This is why I actually, because I'm a track nerd too, right? So I don't really like basketball, and I do love football, I love college football, but I'm a track guy. I
hmm
think sometimes reading about it in other sports
I
helps
love
us.
I love
Yeah,
reading about other sports. I love it.
right,
I love it.
right. I think it helps us see it a little differently instead
Yeah.
of just the, everything that we have in our mind about 8 laps to the 2 mile, all the things that
Right.
we have that are just in our box. It helps us to see things that we don't know. Maybe, maybe someone's reading football and, they talk about a offensive tackle and they're like, I don't even know what position they're talking about. But the way that the way those two, there's two authors on Twin Thieves, if I remember correctly.
Yep, there is.
And Todd's another, the way those guys, uh, tell the story. You don't have to know the sport. You don't have to be in football and in
Exactly.
basketball to get so much value from it. So I love that you brought up Twin Thieves, and I love that your AD made you guys read Lead for
Yes,
God's
that
sake.
was,
That's
yeah, he
so
likes us. We've got a
awesome.
great AD here. He does a really good
Oh,
job and coaches education, and especially the relational part of it is a big
yeah,
deal to us. So,
I
yeah.
love that. Okay, are we at a point where I can just pepper you with a ton of questions that I have, or is there more to the story up to today here at Byron Center that we should?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, I just think our high school coach, like I love our college coaches. I coached high school for 2 years and then 8 years of college. So I call myself a college coach, but I just see so much more impact coming from our high school coaches moving forward. So I just love just like peppering you guys because you guys are. I don't know. I don't want to say ground floor, but you're in the just the thick of it with 14 to 18-year-old kids, right? So I just
Yeah.
love kind of picking your brain. One question for you that I'd love to know because of what you just told me. So how have you when you go through something, when you become better, whether it's I'm a better distance coach or pole vault coach, or I learn an organization to help my team, you have a responsibility to share it. So whether it's with your kids or your staff, you have a responsibility to almost say pay it forward, right? Knowledge that's in our brain that stays there is worthless. So knowing what you just told us there about, comfortable in my own skin, I'm much more comfortable being who I really am. How do you got 14 to 18 year olds guy, you see the gamut in high school. You see
I could tell you some
15,
stories about my classroom. Yeah,
yeah,
they
yeah.
do crazy stuff.
You've got 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that you're like, man, you're like a little 40-year-old. They're so mature as a 16-year-old. And then
Mhm.
you've got the knucklehead seniors or 18, and you're like, bro, how are you ever gonna
There's a
make it in life?
few kids I've been teaching since they were freshmen. They're graduating this year, and I'm really curious what's going to happen with
Yeah.
them.
How do you use the experience that it's still new to you. This was just a couple of years ago, is what I'm hearing. So this is still new to you. How do
Mhm.
you lead young people now knowing this? Meaning you don't want to see other kids who are shells of themselves. Like you're like, man, little Mary, you're actually kind of funny. I wish you'd kind of come out of your shell a little bit. How do you lead knowing what you know now?
Um,
The big question. I know there's no like one answer of like,
yeah,
it's not a workout. It's just how do you
I think
think about that?
it's talking to them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
being interested in what
Mm,
they have to say,
mm-hmm.
um, knowing their name. For
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm,
between the I've got what 160 to 70 kids on my team, and I better know all of their names
mm.
by the end of week one.
Oh yeah.
It's easy, obviously, because
Oh, I didn't even think about that part of it. Yeah.
yeah, and
Holy.
plus the classroom, knowing their name and remembering what they do is showing them is like the simplest thing you can do to show them
Yeah.
you care. Like when coaches are like, "Oh, I'm just bad with names." You might be, but you can still like I'm good with names and faces. So it's not as difficult for me, but like that's such an easy thing you can do is just, know who they are and know what they do. Even the JV kid who is probably never going to make an invite roster, probably never going to score for you.
Right.
Um, know what their PRs are, and that's like PRs are great, but like the kids got to know that that's not the thing that you care about. Like
I
I've got
just
I've got a few kids who probably could have run in college, but like they didn't. And if they love running for the rest of their life, I don't think that's a failure, right? So,
I assume you follow Steve Magnus on
yep, I
Twitter.
know
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah, yep. Steve Mann.
I just saw a tweet from him. He quote tweeted a article or statement from Zuckerberg saying that they're going to start working on creating fake AI profiles for kids because the average kid has 3 friends and they have the capacity of 15. And Steve was like, "This is the dumbest thing." Like rightfully so. Steve was like, "Go help them go meet other people, then not
Yeah.
create fake friends." Right? How many kids? Not how many are you seeing, and be very general because obviously little Susie and
Hmm. Oh
things like
yeah.
this, but are you seeing in general, are you seeing kids? So this is teaching, not just track and field, because you see a lot of kids throughout your career and your every day. Are you seeing kids? I don't want to say broken, but like when you said know their names, which seems like the most like basic
Seems like the
duh,
most basic thing you
but
can do.
how
Yeah.
many adults dismiss someone because they're 14 or 15, just because they're younger, and just dismiss them? And now this is what, okay, this is the real superpower of the track coach, right? You empower young people. You show them
Yeah.
that you mean something. And there's
Yep.
so many adults in life, and I'm not saying teachers necessarily, but other people just in life and in our society that dismiss someone just because they're 14, not 30.
Right. Yeah.
Are
And or
you, are you seeing that from
just because
kids?
they're this generation and this generation is
Oh my God.
this is the laziest generation since the previous generation, since my generation, since your generation. Like,
Yep.
no, like the in Ecclesiastes in the Bible it says there's nothing new under the sun. There really isn't, right?
That's
Like
great.
teenagers are the same. um, I think teenagers are pretty cool. One of the things I like to do is so like part of the culture building part is I'll just send out a Google form. Um, Tell me what the word effort means to you.
Hmm.
And it's all pretty run-of-the-mill stuff, but they're
Mhm.
like they say really cool things. And they should get more credit than they get. And
Yes.
I'm blessed to be teaching and coaching in a pretty good district. But I really think that teenagers get more crap than they deserve right now.
Yeah.
I think I think this generation is going to be just fine. I
Yeah.
think they do a really good job. And I think they try just as hard as anybody else ever has. So
Yeah. You nailed it. Every young generation is the worst generation ever. The world's going to end when these kids become adults. By the way, that's what they said about my generation.
exactly.
That's what they said about my parents' generation when they were kids. It's just at the end of the day, it's like, teenagers are uh, uh, less educated, less motivated, less smart in general than the 30-year-old. But they become 30-year-olds though.
Right.
They go on to become educated and interested and all that kind of stuff. What are you seeing? You have a successful program there. What are you seeing kids in regards to? So I hear, and again, everything, when I say I hear, a lot of it's through conversation, but a lot of it's through Twitter, right? Kids just have a D1 or bust mentality. They all think they can go to University of Michigan or Michigan State. In reality, they should be looking at Grand Valley and Lansing Community College. Are you seeing that? It's like, do all your seniors say, "Hey, coach, man, I'm a Michigan kid. I'm an Illinois kid." When
We're in a weird spot actually. Our I see it academically here.
Hmm.
So I think track and field wise, we're getting to the point where we're getting kids to go to college for athletics.
Hmm.
We've got a few that are going to go. We've had a few that have walked on places. Um, no, I don't think we. I've got one D1 runner at CMU right now. He runs cross country. Um, but no, of a few NAIA. One of our throwers is going to go throw for Davenport next year.
Hmm.
Um, Sporting wise, we don't have a huge D1 or bust mentality here across the athletic department,
Hmm.
but we're a very high academic school, and so I see a lot of the shop teacher, and I see like um there are I think a shocking amount of kids that are going D1 academically who I think could be going, a smaller school might be better for you.
Mm.
Maybe you should try the trades. Maybe you should uh like we have there's like the BC Decisions Instagram page. I don't know if this I think this is a popular thing now where some student runs the page and everybody gets their name with a graphic and their college logo and their major. And whenever I see a kid that says I'm going to Michigan and I'm undecided, I'm like, is that the best idea?
Right, right,
Right. So in sports, we don't see it a ton here. I
right.
think kids, if anything, we need to, like, our athletic department has made a not to get to kids to go to college for sports,
Yeah.
but just like achieve more. Like, well, let's set the bar higher.
Yeah.
We were we were kind of known for being one and done in a lot of sports in the playoffs for a while. And our current AD was like, listen, we have the resources and the talent to do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Not that winning is the only thing. Um, but if we're gonna do this, we gotta, we gotta strive for excellence. Um, and so it's evolved to where I think kids are realistic, and, but it's not not a D1 or bust mentality
Yeah.
around here.
What about, so you mentioned you had kids, Davenport and Central Michigan and NAIAs and things like that. So you've had kids being recruited. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a two-pronged question. What are you seeing as the high school coach, as the coach? What are you seeing college coaches doing really well recruiting? And then the inverse is like, what do you wish they would do a little bit better? And that could be everything from like they contact you or they don't contact you, or they're making all these wild NIL aspirations. What do you see
Yeah,
college coaches doing well and not doing well?
I'm not sure that I have. I'm not sure that we have the profile here to have a huge opinion on that yet. I get letters for kids still.
Hmm.
Um, haven't had a ton of interaction with college coaches to this
Hmm.
point. The team, when I took over, it was not a great track team. We've seen both sides success year over year, and we're pretty good, both boys and girls now.
Nice.
Um, I think we're had more kids recruited than ever, but I don't have a ton of interaction with college coaches.
Okay, but that's fair. But you're the head coach. So what's your opinion? Because this is a pretty hotly debated argument of should the college coach talk to the high school coach or not. I'm when I recruited, I was recruiting was kind of my main thing. I never, good or bad, but I shouldn't say never. I did not make an effort to reach out to the high school coach unless it was like, hey, I need Susie's phone number or something,
Right.
right?
So I'll get that.
Uh,
I'll get coaches that are like, hey, email me, hey, can you connect me with Natalie?
yeah, yeah.
Or
But what?
here's a list of they'll email me and say, here's a list of the kids we're interested in.
Mhm,
Can you put us together?
mhm.
Right.
But
I
what do you
appreciate that.
prefer? Like, uh, your kid's going to Davenport. He's a pretty good kid. I know Davenport's program, so that kid is pretty decent.
Hmm.
Would you have wished, not knowing and not wanting to know specifics, would you have wanted the coaches, and you're not the throws coach, but just bear with me, the coach to call you and say, hey, tell me about Larry, what kind of character, or are you cool with just like, hey, yeah, here's Larry's phone number. Good
Yeah,
luck.
I think I don't want to influence the kids too much in that way,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
My thing is if they decide they want to compete in college, I want to help them as much as I can help them.
Hmm.
But I don't want to be like, hey, this school is better than that school. You should go here, you should go there.
Hmm.
Um, and so if a college coach asks me to connect them, great. I'm willing to help them. If I get a letter in my school mailbox that says kid X, from whatever college, I'll hand it out at practice. Um, and ultimately, I want the kid to find where they fit,
Yeah.
and whether that's D2 NAIA, whether the coach went through me or not. Like if I mean, because they can see like athletic.net, we're an athletic.net state. You
Hmm.
can see the numbers there, right?
Right.
You can figure out who you want to recruit pretty easily, and if you figure out like it's not hard to figure out like the equation for a school's student email system,
Right.
right? So you can like okay, once you or contact them on Instagram or Twitter or whatever,
Yeah. Oh, it's
right?
huge. I hear now.
So I'm
Yeah.
not offended
Yeah.
if somebody goes straight to the kid. I
Yeah.
just want the kid to find the right fit.
because tangentially with that argument is the high school or junior college coach who gatekeeps. So XYZ University sends a letter for information. The coach is like, my kid's better than I'm not giving this letter, and they throw it away. Which that is just abhorrent to me because it's like, man, that's ego. Like, let
Right.
the kid make the decision. I don't care
Right.
what
Exactly.
we talk a lot about the kids having D1 or bust mentalities. There are coaches out there that they have the D1 or bust mentality. It's like, oh, if my kid's not going to D1, they want the ego of saying my kid
Right.
went to Michigan, Michigan State, Central, Eastern, etc. So yeah, not great, not great. Uh, what are you seeing? You've had 5 years of coaching, 5, 6 years of coaching there. Are you seeing any difference? Like, I love when I get a coach who's been, 30 years in the game because I'm like, all right,
Hmm.
how have kids changed?
Yeah. Tell me about what it was like back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you seen much of it? Because you got to see at least one year, pre-COVID kid,
Hmm.
and now you're seeing post-COVID kid. Are you seeing any
Yeah.
differences in drive, education,
I think
respect?
that we've leveled back off,
Hmm.
especially in the classroom, and I think we saw a little bit so our current senior class is like a COVID kid class. However, our senior class across the board was loaded. Football team was state runner-up, boys
We're,
soccer was state runner-up.
what's the math tell me? This year's seniors, what were,
This is my fourth year teaching.
yeah.
So our seniors were my first freshman teaching, and that was 2021, I
Okay,
believe.
so this year's seniors were eighth graders at COVID. That's what I was trying to figure out.
No, 2020. So five, four, three, but 2022. So they were seventh, eighth, or ninth graders. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And I
interesting.
think I think so our current senior class athletically didn't miss a beat because these kids are monsters.
Hmm.
But I think general student population, we've kind of come over that, and like there are a lot of annoying behaviors in here that we are not a fan of as adults. And we have dealt with them with strategic things in the classroom in the high school specifically. Um,
Are, are
but I
you are
think
you
we're
a cell
leveled back off.
phone go away school?
We are starting this year, you got to turn it in at the door of each classroom. You can have it in the hallways.
Yeah.
I've got a cart with a pocket chart over there that they got
Yeah.
to put them in.
Yeah.
And this year has been my best year teaching
It's
so
so
far. The
my
kids are talking to each other. They
yep,
are
yep. My
interacting.
my wife is a substitute teacher, and so our high school, uh, yes, did she coach high school this fall? I can't remember. She either taught high school this fall or last spring. I can't remember. And it was the first year of no cell phones, and she's done she did long term stuff. And same thing. She said the same thing. So they have cubby hole. When you walk in, you got to put it up, and you don't get to it until
Mhm.
you walk out. And she's like, Mike.
It,
She goes, they're talking like
it's
properly
game
talking to
changer.
each other.
Game
There's
changer.
less this game changer. Yeah, which I can't. I grew up without a cell phone in school, obviously.
Yeah, me too. Like
Uh,
I didn't have I had a flip phone until I was like, I don't know, mid 20s.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think my younger sister-in-law had an iPhone before I did.
yeah. Yeah, right.
So,
So I can't imagine growing up with this in
right.
school with it. Just it seems so foreign to me. All right, Colin. You are a leader. It's a really amazing story. Are you doing anything? Uh, you're doing a great job at Byron Center. Very focused. I know a lot of your attention, teaching and coaching is right there. Have you started reaching out from the school? Meaning, are you doing anything for the Michigan High School Track Coaches Association? Are you teaching level ones? I don't know. Are you doing anything
I would love to do that someday. I'm actually on my
like
first year on the MITCA, so Michigan Interscholastic Track Coaches
yeah.
Association. I'm on the
Yep.
track and field committee for the first time this
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
So that's cool. We had our first meeting of
Very.
the year last Sunday.
Yeah.
I went through USAT level one and level two.
Yep.
Um, I love coaches education. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
Of course you
definitely
would, engineer. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a go learn stuff guy.
Yep. Yep.
If I could teach that stuff in the future, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, so you're starting with Mitka. What led you to like reach out? I mean, that's not everybody does that. So,
Um, I like being a part of stuff like that.
yeah.
There are I want to be a part of changing things for the better.
Yeah.
Um, and like I'm not a there's there's things that I would like, improved, and I'm not gonna sit here and be one of the ones that just complains about it. I'd okay, give me a seat at the table and I'll actually help
Yeah.
be a part of making things better rather than just, off in the gallery
Yeah.
laughing or poking fun or complaining.
The Mitka Track Clinic is one of the top ones in the country. Have you spoken at that yet?
I've not spoken there yet. Maybe someday.
No, someday soon. You're on the committee now, so you know exactly who to talk to.
Yeah.
But you got to give it a shot, man.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to do that in the future. Yeah.
One of the and I know you know about the series, and this, my challenge is going to be for you to create your own episode here for the Gill 1918 project. You know, when I we've been doing this series, the Gill Connections podcast now for, we're on season 6, and it's every Monday, a deep dive. We've been going for an hour and 30, hour and 40 at this point, and they're awesome. And we're going to continue doing that. But I wanted to find a way to help you. I think there's a lot of coaches, and what's interesting, you know, um, assuming your natural age, kind of, just knowing your story, but knowing your, we talk about kids training age, right? Like how many years
Mhm.
your coaching age is, 5 or 6 or whatever. You're such a pup in this. I
I
love
know.
that. That's a good thing. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. So, but you have such natural leadership, and you're a learner, you're a lifelong learner. And so those kind of people like you, again, kind of talked about this earlier, you have a responsibility to help others. You really do.
Yeah.
And so I was wanting to find a way to do that through a medium that I do that. You and I follow each other pretty closely on Twitter. So you see the things I do on
Oh
Twitter.
yeah. I plan to submit something for you at some point. It's just
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not going
Good.
to do that when we have 4 track meets in a
No,
week.
excuses. No, I know. I don't know. Yeah, you're exactly right. But what I hope is for a guy like you that certainly should be speaking at track clinics, that could be a for many different reasons, a scary proposition, right? And what I hear the most from coaches when I've been reaching out with the Skill 19H project is, I don't have anything to say, Mike. And that's not true. Your
I mean, that's true at
experience
all. I think,
matters. Your
yeah,
experience matters. And so
exactly.
my hope is that the Gil 1918 project is like the first step, like, okay, let me kind of gather my thoughts around a topic and speak for 10 to 30 minutes. And then, okay, how would I do that now on a stage? Because it's much easier, less intimidating to do it, here on the microphone, and no one's going to boo. You can't hear if people boo you when they're listening to the podcast,
Right.
right? So you don't have to worry about any kind of, front row people are yawning or looking at you weird. You do have to worry about that when you're on the stage. But my hope is like this is like step one for people to like explore their thoughts around things. And I just think, you're what you talked about, how you thought about applying for the job, and then, okay, so step one was X and Y and Z. I think that's important for people to learn, because I think there are
Yeah.
people out there who want to coach, but I'm not good enough,
I
or
think that's
I
what one
didn't
of the
run
things
track, and
that's one of the things I'm passionate about. Like
yeah.
I think the a smart coach can figure out the training part. It's all the stuff around it. That's the hard part.
We've been kind of double clicking into that over the past couple of episodes about, and through Twitter. I look at the Irvin brothers down in Texas, Teskito and Summer Creek. They're winning state titles, setting national records in the 4x1 and stuff like that. And they're kind of showing that. I don't want to belittle the X's and O's part of it and say like that's the easy part, but when it comes to running a successful program, I kind of think that might be the
I
easy
think it's the
part.
easy
And
part.
all
I
this
think it's the easy
other
part.
dealing with 14 to 18-year-old kids, if you're in high school, 18 to 22 in college, and empowering them, and culture. I think that might be the harder part. And you know what? We don't ever talk about that at track clinics. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's getting better. But
It's getting
80,
better, but
80%,
it's
80% of things you talk about at a track clinic is going to be how to make a long jumper jump farther, distance
right,
runner. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like I don't I have things to learn about distance training, but those are never the first ones I look for.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. All right,
So
Colin, as you look to the future, man, you got your crystal ball there, and you're looking at, we're in the 2025 season, and, a guy like you, an engineer brain like you're already thinking about 26, 27, 28, 29. What's got you
yeah,
excited
you're not
there?
lying.
Yeah, I knew it. My brother-in-law is a electrical engineer. I was a computer engineer for like one semester, so I know that's why I know the brain power, because I couldn't do it. So other smart people like you do it. What's got you excited, man? You're looking at, your assistant coaches with Aaron and those guys, and the team. You already know what freshmen you have and things like that. What's got you
Yeah.
excited here in the next coming couple of years?
The so like our we have like so we have a really game-changing group of seniors, and they're going to um I don't want to say this in a negative way, but they're going to leave a big hole. And
Hmm.
so seeing how our younger kids step up, I've seen like we went split squad last Saturday and sent our stud relays to one place, and then the invite we usually go to took a few younger kids and saw some. I was like, oh, I don't got to worry about the 400 next year because this kid and this kid, they're going to be ready.
Cool.
Um, I've got some we got young kids that I'm excited about. Uh, I don't want to make a ton of assumptions, or predictions. I'm just glad, I'm just happy to be able to coach kids that like what they're doing. And so continuing that and seeing who the next ones that decide that they want to be track athletes, figuring out who those kids are is what I'm excited about.
Dude, I try very hard to stay humble in the sense of that every person who comes to this podcast is a special individual person who has their own journey, their own successes, their own failures. But it is hard again after 300. I've said this a couple times now on the podcast where I think it might be fair to say that I'm the most educated, in-depth interviewer of track and field coaches. I don't know that anybody else has done three. I could be dead wrong and just be a dummy. But I've talked to long form 300 plus coaches, and I don't even count my normal conversations, right? So it's easy for me to think like, oh, they start grouping together. Colin's story is going to be a lot like so and so story and so and so. Your story is so unique. And I love it because it's still what is common amongst the people that we talk to here, and the vast majority of track coaches in this country is, at the end of the day, you're a leader of young people.
Hmm.
You have such a tremendous positive impact on these kids that are discarded, thought less of. And these are all our future store owners, presidents,
No,
principals, all these young
they're the
people.
next man up.
They are going to affect us when we get older. They're going to affect us. They're going to be running stuff, and we got to, hopefully it's going to be good, and it is going to be good because of people like you. And I love that your experience is different. I treasure and value someone who was a high school track athlete, college track athlete, become a coach. They impart amazing things into kids. You have a story to tell when a kid comes to you and says, coach, I'm not feeling it because struggles at home, or I don't feel like I'm smart because of blah 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 blah. You have such a unique background to be like, hey, let's talk. Let's go for a
Yeah.
walk.
I
Let me tell you the
and I
time that
love
I
that
didn't believe
too.
in myself either. you know?
There are kids when they come to me and they're like, they're freaking out because they're a freshman and they don't know what to major in college. I'm like, step back a second. Like,
Can you
let me
imagine?
tell you a story about somebody who switched careers completely halfway through.
Yeah.
Like, it's all gonna be okay.
Yes.
Those are my favorite
I
conversations.
just had an hour-long conversation with an athlete, big time athlete. I won't say her name for obvious reasons. She's about to graduate college, and it was the same thing. Like, Mike, I feel like I'm supposed to have it all put together, and I
Nope.
and I, I really don't know what I want to do with my degree, and do I go to grad school? And I was just like, to me, you're so young, you're 22, give me a break. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
double your age. I didn't figure out my passion until I got here at 30, 31. I had two other careers. I thought I
Right.
was a track coach, thought I was a poker player, all this stuff. At that age, especially, a freshman in high school, it's a little precious. Like, what do you mean you don't know what to major in? Get out of here.
Yeah,
You don't need to be
exactly.
thinking about that. But it's like, dude, life is like a buffet. Go test things, go try things. You don't have to have it figured out at 18, 22,
No, you don't.
30.
Go try things, and
You
if
didn't
you
have it figured out.
make
You thought you were one thing, and guess what?
make
Thank
a
goodness you
mistake
were
and
wrong.
then
That's
do it
right.
again.
That's right,
Yeah.
buddy. Dude, I'm so grateful for you, man. First of all, your time. It's super busy. All those track meets, and I'm
Hey,
just
we're taking a breath this week. We're doing good.
good. Good. You deserve it. And they deserve it. That's good. Good. Because you're gonna blink and you're already into conference and
I know,
regionals
that's the
and state.
crazy part. It's about the time of year for me to say, hey kids, like this
Unbelievable.
is these are the most fun meets because it's championship season, but just like live in the hour.
That's it,
Don't
baby.
look forward to next week because it's going to be
That's it.
done. So
So grateful for you, grateful for your time. It's the most expensive thing you give me. So I really am just appreciative of you being here today
yeah,
and sharing your
absolutely.
journey so authentically, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
grateful for you. Thank you guys again for being here. I enjoy the crap out of this, man. I hope you guys do too. You know, these people that join us, and you know, we're trying. We only get 52 of these a year, but you know, the goal is to catch them all, Pokemon, right? To get every coach on here,
Go.
because again, this is what a great example of a unique background that is really impacting young people in an amazing way. So appreciate you guys being here today. Join us next week. We'll have some fun then again. See you guys.